Hi everybody and welcome to my first ever monthly reading wrap up. I'm honestly so excited and I never thought I'd be doing this video because, as you know, I am a slow reader. So I usually read like one book a month, but this month I actually read 3 and I almost finished another one, but we'll get into that. Don't expect these every month, but this month was just a very good reading month for me because I found books that I really enjoyed and I just flew through. Disclaimer before we start the video, there will be spoilers. I got my bullet journal here where I track the books and I got my Goodreads here as well so I can give you my ratings. Okay, so the first book I read this month was A Series of Unfortunate Events, and it is the first book, which is The Bad Beginning. I did talk about this briefly in my vlog where I was reading it. A Series of Unfortunate Events is a movie I loved as a child. It did creep me out, but I still liked it. And then a show I watched once it came out. So I was very excited to read the book. I actually recently bought book 2 and 3 and I started book 2. Let's talk about the storyline. Basically the story is 3 kids become orphans and this main man, which is Count Olaf, is trying to steal their fortune. So he like tries to marry the oldest, who is still a child, and it's just awful to them. So as I said, I love the movie and the show, but I still want to read the books because books offer another depth than a show or a movie can give. So what I really enjoyed about this book compared to the movie and the show is that you knew what the kids were thinking. Like, of course, when one of the children were doing something, like for instance, when Violet, the oldest, is doing an invention, making something, in the show and the movie, you see her face, but you don't know what she's thinking inside. But there's a moment of thinking inside of her brain in the book where you can like explain what she's thinking. What I also really liked about this book is that Count Olaf, like, not that he's not horrible in the show and the movie, but you can make him even worse in a book because he's not actually acting this way towards children, which is very illegal. But like, he's just a little creepier and he like hits the kid, and like his people who work for him, his friends, are like saying very creepy things to the kids about like Count Olaf hurting them. And in the show, I found that his friends, you weren't scared of them. They looked funny and like it was like a funny moment, and like even when they were trying to be mean, like they weren't being actually mean to the kids, and they had like kind of a soft spot for the kids, especially the Hookman. But in the book, the Hookman is horrible. So I really liked that, where it was like adding more depth to the storyline. Also, every other character besides the Baudelaire children is stupid in the book, like the show and the movie. I love that. I think it's so funny because you're so frustrated. You're like, come on, Mr. Poe. Like, he's after their fortune. They're telling you again and again. And then he's like, well, no. It is a kid's book. I highly suggest it for kids. I loved it. But even for adults, one of my favorite things about it is, first of all, it is small. It fits in my purse perfectly. So I can take it everywhere with me and it's so easy. But also, as it is a children's book, the font is very big and there's not that many words, so it reads very fast. Also, aesthetically, the pages are, I don't know what style it is, but like all different and like worn. I used to hate that, but I loved it in this book. It just, I don't know, it made sense with the book, I guess. I ended up giving this book 4 stars in my bullet journal and on Goodreads. I just really liked it and I'm excited to read the whole series. I think there's like 18 books, so it will take me a while, but I highly suggest anybody reading this. I decided to get this type of cover that did not have the Netflix characters on it just because, I don't know, I just liked it like that. Second book I'm talking about is Sadie. I'm gonna give trigger warnings for this book. Ableism, child sexual abuse and rape, central theme but no explicit details given, pedophilia, child pornography, sex work, children neglect, parental abandonment, PTSD, flashbacks, disorder eating, mentioned, suicide attempts, unintentional self-harm, substance, addiction and abuse, alcoholism and alcohol consumption, recreational drug use, overdose mentioned, pregnancy mentioned, graphic blood description, hospitalizations, serious physical illness, physical injury, nemesis, terminal cancer mentioned, death of a sister, death of a child, death of a grandmother, death of a husband mentioned, murder, physical assault, night violence, fire, economic depression, disappearance of a loved one, hostage situation, stalking, car accident, bullying, recounted homelessness, and poverty themes. It is a very heavy book. So I started the book Sadie like last year at some point, and I just couldn't get into it. And I'll tell you why very quick. I do like monologue. I like when there's thinking in the head, but with Sadie, because the girl Sadie has a stutter, she doesn't talk barely at all. So it is always in her head, and I, as a slow reader, I try to skip sometimes the like explanations and go right to the conversations, because you can still understand a book like that, especially as a slow reader, or it'll take me forever to read a book. But Sadie just had so much monologue. I think that's what it's called. I hope it is. And not a lot of conversations, which I had a hard time with. Basically, the book Sadie is like this girl Sadie, her younger sister is murdered, and she thinks she knows who it is. Her stepdad, her mom's ex-boyfriend. She goes on this wild goose chase. She goes on this wild hunt to find her mom's ex-boyfriend. Her mother left, so it is just her and her sister, and she's like supposed to still be in high school, I think. She's like 17. So she goes on that, and there is a podcast production that is done in the area, but they're studying something else. So they go home, and then they ended up getting a call from her surrogate grandmother, that's what she calls herself, to investigate it, to find Sadie. I found the podcast episodes a lot easier to read because it is like short little sections when Sadie is just all reading. The book, it just frustrated me more than anything that everything that could go wrong for this young girl went wrong. A lot of times when I read books, it's not that I want a happy ending, but I want a happy ending. So with everything that happened throughout this book, I was hoping that Sadie would get a good ending, but she didn't. Which makes sense with the story. Of course, her life wouldn't be so horrible and then end on a high note. But basically how it ends, again, spoiler, the ex-boyfriend is found dead. He got in a fight with somebody, and they don't know who killed him. But Sadie's car is found on a dirt road, and that's it. So they are leaving room for a second book, but it's like Sadie never went back to her hometown to see her surrogate grandmother. We don't know if she got the revenge she wanted so badly to kill him, which like just left me upset because I wanted her to know that she succeeded and that he is gone and he will never do that to another girl again, because he did rape her, and it is not for everybody. And I think that's why it took me so long to get through it, because I just didn't want to read about that stuff because it just broke my heart. I did end up giving Sadie 3.5 stars in my bullet journal, but on Goodreads I bumped it up to 4 stars just so hopefully nobody was like offended. But I wouldn't read it again. The Silent Patient also has a lot of trigger warnings. Let me pull them up. So ableism and ableist language, child abuse, cheating, suicide and attempted suicide, psychiatric hospitalization, blood and gore description, eyeball trauma. Yeah. Death of a parent recounted, death of a husband, murder, gun violence, strangulation, and something else that is not on here but is stalking. Y'all, I'm gonna jump right into it. This was my favorite book I've ever read. I gave it 5 stars in my bullet journal and on Goodreads. And everything else I've ever given 5 stars to has to be bumped down to 4 or 4.5 because nothing topped this book. Again, like, I'm going to give spoilers. I am sorry. If you don't want spoilers, leave the video. This is more for people who have potentially already read it and want to hear like somebody else's view on it, or even somebody who, like me, I just watch review videos and I don't care if there's spoilers because I'm probably not gonna read the book. That's it. The Silent Patient, oh my. So Alicia is the main person in the story, but she doesn't talk. She's in a psychiatric unit and she is refusing to talk after she killed her husband. She's giving no explanation as to what had happened. So she was obviously found guilty of murdering her husband because she didn't say anything and like wouldn't talk to anybody. The narration in this book is not done by her. It is done by Let me find his name. It is done by Theo, and he is a psychotherapist. And he was fascinated by what happened with Alicia, so his dream was to work with her, and there was an opening at her psychiatric unit, regardless of it going under the ground. It was not doing well. He left his very secure job and went there to work. From the beginning, you're like, oh my god, he's obsessed with her. But like, I'm somebody who adores true crime, and like, I like following along with these stories, so I would also have that sort of fascination, so I didn't think anything of it. So the story jumps back and forth between a couple of different narrations. The main one is him speaking about his visits with Alicia, about before, about his cheating situation that's happening in his house. He thinks his wife is cheating on him. But then there's also journal entries by Alicia, which are fascinating. They start July 14th, and then she kills her husband in August, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So this whole time, the psychotherapist is like doing an investigation, kind of like a detective, to find out what happened with Alicia and why she killed her husband, because she won't speak. They meet and she attacks him. And he is like, no, like, that is her way to communicate with me. Like, that is amazing. But basically, while he has a new job, his wife is cheating on him. Or so we think. But what is actually happening is that the cheating happened beforehand. But the author, him, he wrote it so seamlessly that you thought everything was happening at the same time. But no. Theo's wife was cheating on him with Alicia's husband. That is what's happening, okay? It's being told like it's all happening at once, and it's not. Besides the journal entries, you know that's at a different timeline. So basically, like, during the whole book, Alicia thinks she's being stalked, but he's not stalking her. He's stalking her husband because her husband is sleeping with his wife. But he ends up breaking into the house. And I don't remember if he tied Alicia up or not. I think he might have. But he ends up giving the husband an ultimatum, being like, I'm killing your wife, I'm killing you, you pick. And he lets the wife get shot, but she doesn't. He pretends. He shoots the ceiling, gives her the gun, and leaves. So she killed her husband. She's like, how dare you let him just kill me, right? And this whole time, she recognizes Theo as the man who like ruined her life, and that's why she attacked him, because she wanted to kill him. I'm sorry, I'm probably not explaining it well at all, but I would suggest reading it, because in the end it has a happy ending, and it was such a good book, and it was written so well that I was tricked. Anyway, 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. Probably the best, definitely the best book I've ever read, and I highly suggest everybody reading it, even though I spoiled it all. Okay, and I don't technically have 4 books, but I'm telling you guys why right quick, okay? I started listening to the audiobook of The Song of Achilles, and they removed it. So I had to buy it. So I bought it. In the audiobook, I was 270 pages in out of 370. So I'm almost done with this. To the point where I'm at, yes, read it. Read it. I will not give any spoilers yet because I'm not at the end. But read it. It is amazing. Like I said before, I love Greek mythology, but I did not know that this was a gay romance. I just really like it. I don't know the original story. This is a retelling, and I'm enjoying it a lot, and I cannot wait to finish it. So that is it for my February books I read. If you guys have any recommendations for March, comment them down below. I have quite a few books on the go that I'm probably gonna read and finish in March. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!